have her back more regularly, you can watch her YouTube channel at Girl Writes What. I don't like to use the term men's rights activist. She's just a sort of counterculture, we can call her disturber of the fecal matter. Karen Strawn, thanks for being on.
I am a disturber of the fecal matter, and thank you for having me again. I try to sort of not go so much by the men's rights activist label lately. I'm more sort of just focused on anti-feminism, and anti-SJW cultures.
This is true. Well, it's a winning battle right now. That's the thing. There's a noticeable shift to the point where whenever I get a tweet to the opposite, I'm like, are you serious about this? So the reason, actually, I forgot, I reached out to you last week, and then I had all this whole kerfuffle, see, that happened with my knee. So we moved you over, was Ted Cruz and the draft. Now, I know you're not even necessarily a conservative, but he was the one guy who said, like, no, I don't think women should be in the draft. I think it's ridiculous. I understand that's a double standard, but where do you line up on this now? Because it's become a little bit of a complex issue. You know, first female combatant in the United States military went AWOL. I just thought that was hysterical.
I think the whole women being allowed into combat question is irrelevant. I think women should have been subjected to the draft the moment that they got the vote, and just as men were. And there is when a nation goes to war, it's not just a matter of putting men in boots with rifles and bayonets to charge hills.
Right.
There is an entire support staff behind that. There are people sitting in rooms behind computers. There are people piloting drones. There are people changing tires on military vehicles. There are people cooking French toast for guys in barracks. There are all kinds of positions there that are not combat positions, that don't require the kind of training, don't require putting our daughters in a foxhole, being bombed and being shelled, right? And frankly, when you look at the responsibilities that men have had through history, and how that balanced out the extra rights that they had on top of what women had.
Sure.
And you even look at the female anti-suffragettes, and there were lots of them. The majority of women opposed the draft, right? Almost right up until the same afternoon it was granted to, the vote.
Right. Well, both.
Almost
That's
right
why. The two are one and the same at that point.
Right. But the reason why they opposed it was because they didn't want the responsibilities that came with citizenship for men. And those responsibilities were not just military conscription. It was being part of bucket brigades, being part of posses if ordered to do so, assisting police officers, assisting fire marshals, hue and cry laws that required hue and cry law would hold a man as responsible as the perpetrator if he failed to intervene.
Did you, real quick, because I brought this up after having an interview with you, I looked into it even more. I had kind of a cursory knowledge, and I've looked up a lot of your speeches. And I was actually at a movie theater, and they were showcasing Suffragette, with Meryl Streep, who's now in hot water for her African comments. And I told the lady there, who was clearly a feminist, listen, I just thought she looked like a feminist. It's not that hard to tell. And I said, well, do you know why a majority of women opposed, actually, the right to vote? And I talked, like I said, Bucket Brigade, the draft, and she's like, I'm not sure if that's true. Actually, she said, I'm not sure if that's true. And then she went and bought a plaid shirt at Orvis. But I said, actually, there's a great girl you should look up, Dame, see, broad, Karen Strawn, Girl Writes What? And she said, I don't think so. I don't think that's correct. So all of this is verifiable. Do you feel like you're beating your head against a wall? Because nobody believes me when I say it. They're just like, well, you just don't want women to vote.
Oh, I don't get me wrong. It's not like I'm arguing against women having the vote. What I'm arguing for is for women to, and we have seen this sort of steadily over time. Women, they gained the rights that men had while maintaining their privileges and their exemptions from the obligations that typically went along with those for men. And they have slowly but surely over time, sometimes it's 50 years, sometimes it's 75 years, sometimes it's 100 years, right? Before women are forced to take on the obligations that went along with those rights for men back when women got the same rights as men.
So, we had Mark Ripto talking about, listen, women just aren't as good at combat. It's just reality. And you'll find an outlier. But I think what's more interesting, and you've talked about this so much, is why women opposed voting, and it was because of the draft. And now we're so far down the trail to something that really should just seem to be a given. When people earned the right to vote back in the day, the draft was a part of it. Yeah. So how do you try to convince people or educate them with something like this, with a Ted Cruz situation where it's an uproar, everyone's offended? How do you react, and how do you try and coach people?
Well, I think I would tell someone like Ted Cruz that there's absolutely no way women belong in combat. That they absolutely don't. And there's multiple reasons for it. Even women who meet all of the standards and can do all of the tasks, right? They have, like, even just in infantry, particularly in elite forces, there is permanent damage to your body from what your body is being put through. Right. Not just in training, but in actually out in the field. And so that damage is going to be much, much worse for a woman. Right. You will end up with women who will permanently lose their fertility because they have been in very, very, very intense physical labor in, say, the Marine Corps or something like that. They will lose their fertility permanently. They will suffer like extreme bone loss, right? So this is not something that women should be doing.
And I think Ted Cruz would actually share your position. Everyone hears him saying no draft. He's actually saying no draft, but women should be in the military, just not in combat. And now the draft is problematic because we've allowed women in combat. By the way, did you follow the story of the first female combatant going AWOL?
I looked into it. Yeah, she disappeared. Like, it was she didn't even complete basic training, did she?
No. Well, the thing is, we wrote about it and we laughed so hard, and then we realized she could be dead, and we were like, oh. But we're already along this trail, and we have no breadcrumbs to follow back.
I don't think so. She took like she was like partway through basic training, and she took a medical leave or something like that.
But she just left. I mean, it wasn't an official medical leave. She was just gone. And I know not all women will do that, but every now and then you get one straight down center plate.
It's a well-known but never spoken of secret in the U.S. military that you know that if you're in the military, that if you allow yourself to be sunburned, you can actually be prosecuted for that because you've damaged U.S. property. Right? Your body belongs to the military. And so, I mean, if you actually do something that makes you, do something stupid that makes it impossible for you to actually perform your duties, that you can be charged with a crime for that. You can be court-martialed for that. Right? But it's a well-known, not very much spoken of secret in the military that when women are deployed, they have a very high rate of becoming pregnant within a very brief period of time.
Well, it could just be because of all those stud muffins in the military. They look at you and you get pregnant.
Yeah, except for that they're all on contraception. They're all on long-term contraception, and somehow they forget to take their birth control. Somehow, and what happens then? They've damaged government property. They've put a piece of government property out of commission through their carelessness. And what happens to them? They just get sent back stateside, and then they, get put into some cushy job on U.S. military base in the United States, right? They just send them home, right? So
I didn't know. Can you get those stats up on your Twitter so when people go look it up?
I think there are stats. I don't. This is just word of mouth from men who I have talked to.
I've heard it from women. I heard it from a female sergeant when I was in Guantanamo Bay, and she said that actually the only place that'll matter anymore will be the Marine. She said because in the Army they send her girls, and in basic training they cry because she yells at them, and so now they don't allow sergeants to yell at them. So the classic Lee Ernie scene from Full Metal Jacket doesn't happen anymore because...
What is your major malfunction, soldier?
Hold on, we're FCC.
Did your parents not hug you enough as a child?
I know, it's classic. And he was actually just a consultant, and the guy they paid to be the real drill sergeant just couldn't cut it. They said, okay, Lee, you go in there and do it. Hey, glad to see you. Subscribe by clicking my face or the button above that says subscribe. I know you don't have to. You can close the window, but joke's on you. There's a pipe bomb in your basement, and I have the detonator. I highly recommend you subscribe, and even then, you're still rolling the dice. It depends on what my mood is that day.